Hi, I'm Tina Cummins,
I'm Belinda Powers. We are.
your crime sages. Welcome back, folks. We're going to discuss the Delphi homicides of Abigail Williams and Liberty German for a little bit in light of the new information that's come out. Belinda and I thought that it would be a good time to discuss some of the things that we've been thinking about and talking about between the two of us. And so in taking the case back to the beginning, when the girls first went missing, there were some search warrants that were issued in Peru, Indiana, and it just came out that Kegan Anthony Kline, one of the search warrants was on his house, his devices, et cetera, and he had been linked to a profile called Anthony Shots. Now, a couple of days ago, the police came out and asked the public to ask your teenage girls, basically, has anybody been in contact with this guy, Anthony Shots, on Instagram or Snapchat? And if so, contact the Carroll County Sheriff's Department or the Abby and Libby tip line. Well, if you're taking it back to the beginning, okay, so in 2017, they knew that Kegan Anthony Kline was somehow connected to this case. Otherwise, why would they issue a search warrant? Now, if you're looking at Brian Chadwell, he's another one that was connected from Peru, Indiana, and also his brother. So you've got 3 pedophiles from Peru, Indiana, and so far I found 2 more that were charged with cyber crimes after the Delphi homicides. Now, Belinda shared with me the paper where, the charges against Kegan Kline came forth, and there's some areas in there that are redacted, but he's been charged basically with, child pornography, procuring it and sharing it on the web, on the internet or social media. And so, Belinda and I were talking, and for a lot of reasons, Belinda and I feel like these cases may be connected. Is there anything you want to add to what I just said, Belinda?
Yeah, I believe there's some kind of a spider web in there with all of them connected.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said in my last video, a lot of these guys that go on the dark web and, obtain child pornography, download child pornography, or share child pornography, they run in the same circles. And so that's 5 individuals so far from Peru since the Delphi homicides of the girls. That's 5 that have been caught. And I'm wondering if, someone had, I mentioned this before, but wondering if someone had shared information or shared images from the homicides to the dark web, and that's how they were able to obtain these search warrants and able to follow these guys. Now, the sheriff said they have DNA. They didn't specify what type of DNA it is, but they have come out and eliminated some people. And then others, they said, we're not going to say whether he's included or eliminated. So let's just talk about that for a minute. Since we know that Kegan Anthony Kline is now Anthony Shots, and he was getting these images and videos from girls, and he was sharing them to the dark web. He's meeting these girls on Snapchat or Instagram, having them, he's a catfish, basically having them send him, images. They think they're talking to a young guy, that's got a lot of money, a young model, a good looking guy. So it's basically a catfish trap. The reason why a lot of people are going to get angry and say, well, and that was my initial feeling, was why didn't they share this information about Anthony Shots in 2017? And so my thought on that is that the reason they held this so close to their vest is because they wanted to be able to do a sweep. They wanted to be able to sweep as many people as they could that they believed might have something to do with the dark web and or the homicides of the girls. So before you get angry, just say, wait a minute, they do have DNA. Were they able to include or eliminate anybody that they've arrested? At this point, we don't know. But they are saying that he's not the Delphi suspect. So in taking us to the day of the crime, in the video, the guy coming across the bridge, he's obviously wearing a camera. Now, there's a couple images out there on social media. And Belinda and I have never talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about signatures for a second. If you look at the area where the girls were found, the police tape is up, you'll see the trees. A couple of them have been cut off, and you know, the trees have been laid in certain ways. Well, that's a signature. So that area was prepared prior to, most likely before the girls were taken there. And if the guy's coming across the bridge, he's got the camera on, you know, was he there by himself? What do you think about that, Belinda?
Well, we kind of threw that around back and forth over the years.
Yeah.
Not so sure that there wasn't at least two.
Right.
Maybe even three.
Alone, or did he have an accomplice?
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at the sketches, you know, they have the first sketch out and they have the second sketch out. Is that something they got from the video that Libby took? Is it something they got off of her phone? You know, they said, okay, 2 years after the first one, they said, okay, now we want you to focus on this one. And this is the person who killed Abby and Libby. So when one perpetrator is saying, guys, down the hill, he might necessarily be talking to Abby and Libby, but he might be talking to someone else that was there with him. And in thinking about, you know, these child predators that run in these circles, I'm wondering at this point, if there wasn't more than one person there who took Abby and Libby, and if those sketches are not a combination of the two, but actually two different people.
Mm-hmm.
Were they there intentionally, lured these girls there, and possibly to make a snuff film? And so you look at Kegan Kline and you say, well, you know, they said that he was downloading images to the dark web, and he was taking images from the dark web. So he was taking and sharing back and forth. Nobody wants to think that something like that could happen. But if you look at the image of the killer coming across the bridge, and he's got the camera on, he's obviously got the gun, he's, you know, prepared to go out there and do what he was going to do that day. And then you look at the crime scene where, you know, it was set up in a specific way, and there's specific signatures there if you look at the photo. How the tree trunk, the tree limbs were set up and everything. It's, you know, so a lot of people are going to get angry and say, well, why didn't the police share this 5 years ago? And I believe the reason the police didn't share this 5 years ago is because they're trying to catch everybody who was involved. Maybe not just one, but more than one. And if they have DNA of the killer, you know, and they served these search warrants on these people, but that information hasn't come back, or it came back and there was no DNA match, then they say, okay, well then who's responsible for making these images that were shared?
You know, I think we've said over the years that we believe that law enforcement, I mean, we don't believe, we know law enforcement has way more information
know
than they're
more
sharing
than
with
the
the
public.
public.
They know the public always. They have the crime scene.
Right.
They have the girl's phone, you know, and obviously at this point, you know, so they've taken down Chadwell, they've taken down his brother, they've taken down, you know, Kegan Kline and two other gentlemen, or two other, I hate to say gentlemen, two other men from that area.
And we'll say that it's not because of Abby and Lippy per se of their murder, but it is because of them that they probably got caught, because
Right.
they were searching and looking for everybody. So in a sense, it is because of them that
Because of
they
them,
had been charged.
all these guys got caught.
Yeah, they shine the light on them.
Right, so you were talking about Chadwell, when he was arrested, the day he was arrested and his officers went in. They had to know something. And again, he was arrested in, I think it was February or March of 2017 in Peru, Indiana. And obviously they've been watching him very closely.
Mm-hmm.
His brother as well. So they knew something was up with him back then. They also knew something was up with these other people. And, you know, if there are some images or something or a video that was taken and uploaded to the dark web, it's a matter of finding out who actually took the video, who actually took those images and shared them. So, you know, I'm not saying we know for sure that that's what happened. It's just a matter of simple deduction. It seems like the most likely and plausible scenario at this point. So they're not saying that Kegan Kline is responsible for the murders of Abby and Libby, but they're saying that what he had obtained is somehow linked to the Delphi homicides.
Yeah, and in the redactment court papers that they had on file, it said that they gave him a lie detector test for a case, and then it was redacted.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm pretty sure that would have been for the girls.
So, you know, the law enforcement, they put out these two images. Is it two separate people? And because 2 years after the anniversary of the girl's death, you know, they came out and they showed the second younger sketch. And they said, this is the person we now feel is responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I find it awfully ironic that the guys lived on the same street. Is it someone that hangs out with them? Is it someone that, you know, is familiar with this group of individuals that are all on the dark web together?
Right.
You have to ask that question. I mean, with everything that's come out now, how can you not? Are they related? You know, when they arrested Kegan Kline, and they had to wait until they could get something on Brian Chadwell.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the little girl was attacked. And then, you know, Chadwell's brother, you know, fortunately, his 14-year-old was attacked. And how many more in that area, you know, who's to say? Who's to say? So I think, again, the reason they didn't come out with this information in the very beginning, even though they knew that that information was on his, you know, devices. I think the reason they didn't come out and say anything to the public and kind of held it close to their vest is so they could sweep and see, you know, try to get as many people as they could.
Right.
So that still leaves the identity of the younger sketch, who they believe is the killer. Is he from Peru? Is he from Peru, Indiana? Does someone, I mean, obviously someone knows who this person is, but you're not going to get Chadwell or Kline or, you know, his brother. They're not going to turn state's evidence unless.
Right. Well, no, because then it tells on themselves.
I mean, exactly. And Chadwell, he's already got a life sentence. This new character, he's facing life in prison. You know, brother, I don't know how long he's facing. You know, there may be some sort of link there if he has knowledge of it. I mean, at this point, it's speculation. We don't know if he has knowledge of it, but I find it awfully interesting that they're all in the same area on the same street. And
yeah,
you know, whose IP addresses were there? I mean, So at this point, still looking for sketch number 2, and that becomes the main focus. That, and, you know, look, if you're from that area, from the Miami County area, and, you know, you've got children that would have been teenagers at the time, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, you know, you're going to want to talk to them, talk to your teenage girls and say, have you seen the pictures of this model? Did
Yeah,
anyone
he said he was
try to
he was on Instagram getting the people from Instagram and then
Yeah.
telling them to meet him over at Snapchat and
specifically,
that way then.
and he said that he knew the ages of the girls that he was talking to. He knew they were underage, and he didn't care. He didn't care. And he had gotten videos of a lot of girls. They said over 100 images and at least 20 videos. Not only that, he had deleted a bunch of the information off of several of his devices. So,
Yeah.
you know, and the police knew this back in February 2017. And a lot of people are going to say, well, why didn't they arrest him before August of 2020? Well, okay, let's talk about that for a second. The reason they're not going to allow arrest him right away is because a sexual predator can't help themselves in a lot of ways. They are obsessed with this type of behavior. And so by allowing him to stay out, they're able to look at his phones, his different information that he still has, and try to track down.
And again, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
Exactly.
Say it time and time again.
Always not. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. They may have known,
Right.
not had the proof at the time. You know, deciphering what someone has deleted off of their phone or their devices can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, you know, I think it's, you know, again, before you get angry and say, well, they should have put this information out 5 years ago, because that was my first reaction. Instead of doing that, here we are now, and you have to ask yourself why they didn't put this out 5 years ago. Well, you have to be sure you have the right suspect, first of all. And secondly, if there's more than one person involved in this, hence the 2 sketches, or, you know, someone helping make a film, whatever the case may be, you know. And so I think people need to be patient with law enforcement and, you know, just let them do their jobs. Obviously, they had information on all these guys back then. And, you know, they're still saying there's more out there. And at this point, who is it? Who was their circle of friends? Who did they run with? You know, where did they go? What did they do? Somebody knows them. Somebody knows all these people. You know, and I wonder, you know, have they been turned in? Have tips been turned in on them? And if not, why not? So, is there anything you'd like to add, Belinda?
Well, no, but I do believe them coming forward with him, with Kline. I believe that they're looking for something in particular. They're not saying exactly what,
Yeah,
but they're definitely looking for someone.
they're looking for someone in particular. And again, if you focus on the second sketch, I can almost guarantee you the killer looks like that second sketch. Yeah.
And they say 18. He is probably, I would probably say 18 to 22, just like Kline. You know, that's what he was.
Right around the same age range, yes. Someone who went with him.
They're just saying 40 just to put it out there because they had already had that other sketch. You
Well,
know, and the guy did look older.
We do know it's learned behavior, so, you know, that
Right.
the 18 to 40, it falls in that demographic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here's a question. If you know Kegan Anthony Kline, and you know what both sketches look like? Is that second sketch someone familiar to you that lives in the area? Is it someone you know? And you can't go, you know, the guy coming across the bridge is about 5'8". You know, what's the height of the other character? I mean, they haven't said.
Yeah, he's pretty tall.
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah, taller. Maybe 6 foot.
Just have faith in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
They do things for a reason.
And again, if you're someone who was a teenager and who had contact with Anthony Shots, by them being able to go back and trace your devices, they may be able to find out, you know, if you remember your phone number, if you know, if they can go back in your parents' history and say, okay, they were paying for this phone number. And so then they can go back and look at that phone number and see if there's a connection to the dark web and see if images were
or any profile
profile
that was trying to get you to
mm-hmm.
Send nude pictures or any kind of
thing like that.
Yeah.
You know, might lead
any kind of nudity.
Yeah, it might lead them back to the killer. So, you know,
right.
You talk to your kids, say, look, you know, I realize this is embarrassing, but this is a life or death situation. And somebody who is aware of you could be very dangerous. And, you know, you need to say something, you need to tell.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. And so
I think that's why Lesenby said that he didn't think that anybody in the community was in danger because they had already been looking, they already linked,
Well, and
they already had some links.
Initially too, you know, Doug Carter was saying, you know, we don't want one of our officers getting shot. Well, the male model happens to be an officer in Alaska. Okay.
Right.
He's an officer. And so they eliminate him and they're like, okay, who else is involved in this? Well, they don't know, or they have some idea.
Right. And we said it doesn't matter what your profession is or what job career you have.
Right.
If you're a pedophile, you're a pedophile. If you're a rapist, I mean, whatever it is that you do.
Matter, you know, and then them kind of connecting it to the Flora fires and possibly Evansdale. Is this a group of men who, you know, make snuff films, make child pornography?
Yeah, and we hate to think about it that way, but you got to kind of look at it.
You have to kind of,
every time the information comes out, you got to try and understand it, and
you have to. And so now that we know that Kegan Kline was into this kind of thing,
yeah, it's just sickening.
You know, and then others in the area are into the same thing. You got to kind of put 2 and 2 together and say, hey, wait a minute. You know, and just put the whole picture together, and it's like, who else is out there? You don't know who else is involved. But we do know for sure the person in the second sketch is involved. And so, you know, did this person have someone that they hung around with that looked like the second sketch, you know, that would possibly been out there with them at the crime scene? You know, I mean, they're saying that they're not saying one way or another. They're saying that he's not the Delphi suspect, which was he eliminated by DNA? We don't know. We don't know. But
yeah, but something linked them together. Something linked to back to the case.
Right, and it was
what we don't know.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we can pretty much deduce that it was something to do with the Snapchat, the Instagram, and the dark web, because that's what
this character.
That's
their MO. Yeah.
That's his MO. That's his modus operandi. And, you know, now they quickly took down his Facebook and any kind of social media. He had to keep the public from poking,
Mm-hmm.
which means they're still casting that broad net. So again, if you're a mother or if you were a teenager at the time and somebody, Anthony Schott, sent you this, or what was the other one, the Kegan 45 or something like that, you know, if they
I
tried
don't
to
remember.
this other website, oh shoot. Well, anyway, it's easy to Google it, but he used another fake name. Yeah, I believe it was a female name, Kegan or something like that, 45. Anyway, you talk to your kids, or, you know, if you're a young adult now and you were a teenager then and this person tried to contact you, please call Indiana State Police. Or
Yeah, anybody that you feel anybody's been asking for you to send nude pictures,
right. And if
I'm
you
forward, because that's not
exactly
you know, that's not normal.
exactly and you know, you could be saving someone else's life, you know, because these guys, they don't stop. And that's one of the things, you know, they said, well, why didn't they arrest Kegan Kline? He wasn't going to stop. And, you know,
Right.
by allowing him to continue that behavior at home, you know, I'm sure they were watching him to make sure he wasn't going to hurt anybody else. But, you know, allowing him to continue that behavior at home, they were able to gain more information and access to more information.
Right. And we went back to that case in Ohio
Yeah.
we talked about earlier, where
Mhm.
the young man, he had like 15 girls lined up in that same area, all school. I mean, all of them was, you know, through school. He would get one, and then all of a sudden, here he goes on her profile and gets her friend and adds her, and before you know it, he's got 15 of them, and he's going to go there. His intention was to get 5 or 6 of them,
Mhm.
and he got the one, and you know, he kidnapped her from McDonald's, and he had to get on the run, so he only took her.
Right.
But he was going to hear 5 or 6 or 7, or maybe even all of them would have wound up, you know,
Well, and that's another thing.
victims.
If you have children, you know, 10, 11, 12, all the way up, and they're using any kind of social media, you need to talk to them and say, hey, this is what happens. You don't go meet these people. You don't know who the hell's on the other end. How many kids have we helped, you know, rescue and bring home that have gotten into a similar situation where they were meeting up with somebody, even adult women, you know, they'll go out and they'll meet a stranger because they think they look good on social media. It turns out it's a catfish and the dude's going to kill them. You know, not just Snapchat. What was the guy in New York, you know, who's going around killing the girls? The, oh shit, serial killer. Met him on Instagram and Snapchat.
Oh, I don't remember. There's so many.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, he killed like what, 25 women or something like that. Going out and meeting, and these are adults, you know. So you need to make your kids aware that you don't know who the hell's on the other end of that computer.
Well, they can go on their, once they get onto their Facebook or any social media and look at their friends, and then go on their friends' post. They could pretend to be a friend, you know.
Pretend to be a friend, you know. They'll find out what school your kids are going to, you know, just everything. And
yeah, the one guy said he would spend 8 to 10 hours a day just doing background stuff on these kids, and over a 2-year period. So they thought, oh, well, I'm safe. I've been talking to him for 2 years. No, you're not safe. It just took him 2 years before he could travel halfway around the world to meet up with you.
right.
And that's scary.
Well, and the thing is they don't, if you're thinking about your kids, they don't even have to be in contact with your kids in order to find out where they live, where they go to school. All they have to do is be able to see that picture or see a picture.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful as to what you allow your children to do. And, you know, one of the profilers that, you know, let's just say he's been a brilliant profile for almost 30 years or maybe even 30 years. You know, he said back in the 70s, you know, it was easier to kind of hone in on a profile of a serial predator because what they did. Well, now that the World Wide Web has exploded, where a killer used to go out and they would hunt for marginalized girls, marginalized categories like prostitutes, dancers, you know, exotic dancers, whatever. They would go find those marginalized categories. Well, now, you know, they have the internet web, and in order to feed their fantasies every day, they'll go on the web to do it. And, you know, there is a dark web, and there's
Graphic stuff.
a lot of graphic stuff. And so, you know, these beasts, these creatures, these killers, these pedophiles, these child murderers, you know, they're constantly being fed this stuff. And, you know, in looking at Abby and Libby's case, or perhaps even Elizabeth and Lyric or others that have went missing, you know, is it somebody that actually wanted to perpetrate the crimes, or someone who wanted to make money off of those perpetrated crimes? I mean,
Right.
as the public, we don't know. So you really have to talk to your kids, you know, and if you live in the area, anywhere around Delphi, ask your children, ask your teenage girls, you know, look, has this person tried to contact you? Do you remember anything about this individual? And it's a shame they didn't come out with it 5 years ago. But again, I understand why they didn't. It just took me a minute for my brain to get there.
Right. Yeah, the first thought is why, but then you're like, yeah, I understand. I get it.
Well, I mean, you'd think, you know, I mean, they're not going to let him go out and do something to someone else if, in fact, he is the Delphi killer. I mean, they're going to be tailing him wherever he goes and, you know, putting devices
Right.
and whatnot, tracking him. So, but at the same time, you think, well, somebody back then would have had a fresher memory, you know, and maybe they'd recognize this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. But in looking at what Kegan Kline did, you know, and putting 2 and 2 together, it's not rocket science, folks.
Right.
You know, and who is the second image? You know, if you look at the second sketch, who is the second sketch? Does anybody know who Kegan Kline hangs around with? You know of anybody that looks like that second sketch? You know of anybody, if you're a teenage girl, you know, was he in contact with you? So I think it now more than ever, it becomes important, if you have any kind of information at all, call the police, call the tip line, send an email in, show them, you know, send them your proof, whatever you got. Even if it's a suspicion of somebody, you know, narrowing the focus. Is there anything you'd like to add, Belinda?
No, you about covered it all.
All right, well, that's about all Belinda and I have for now.
Yeah, this is all based on our opinions. And
this is an opinion at this point, but you know, it's kind of an educated opinion. So, you know, if you have any information, please contact Tip Line, and please contact the Carroll County Police or Carroll County Sheriff's Office at cacoshrf.com. All right, folks, you have a great day. Take care.